I had doubts if I should go ahead with this video or not. The information I want to share is relevant and it can help candidates in their future Skype interviews. But it can also be misunderstood and considered as lack of professionalism from my side, and nothing further than my intention here. Due to all the respect with the thousands of candidates that I had the chance to interview by now, some interviews were really amazing, but others were terrible. If you think for a while, can you guess what makes a job interview really bad in a way that it remains in your mind for months or even years after it happened? That's exactly what I want to share here. There are no perfect, predefined steps to do a memorable interview. Of course, there are things that helps, just like there are behaviors that do not help at all the candidate to give a professional impression and succeed on the interview. If you are smart and use a bit of common sense, you will probably avoid some of the most basic mistakes you could do to fail in an interview. Nevertheless, I have confirmed already in my experience that common sense is something relative and can vary tremendously from one person to the other. For some reason, I realize people still take a Skype interview as something less serious and important than a face-to-face interview. I don't know why it happens, but this is the only explanation I can find for facing the situations I had to deal with while doing Skype interviews. Similar situations never happened to me before in personal interviews, so I guess we should always start taking Skype interviews into a different level. Here comes a list of real and also funny situations that I had to deal with in previous Skype job interviews. Situation 1. A male candidate appeared on a screen without any shirt, t-shirt, nor polo. Nothing was covering the top part of his body. Well, I really don't know about the lower part of his body, as I could not see that on the video, but the upper part was naked. I could see that. He might have noticed the surprised look on my face once the video turned on, so he immediately justified himself, saying something like, "It was very hot on the place, so I decided to take off the shirt to do the interview and stop sweating." I'm afraid to imagine what this candidate would do in case he's at work and he feels that the ambience is getting too warm. Situation 2. I could see a cat or a dog, or even both sometimes, moving behind the candidate during the interview. I personally love animals, so I can say it was quite distracting for me, and I assume it would be distracting for most of the recruiters. Then at some point, the dog started barking loud and the candidate had to stop the interview to take the animal out of the room. Maybe the animal should not have been in his interview room since the first moment, right? Situation 3. In the middle of the interview, the candidate's father showed up in front of the webcam to say hi to me. The father emphasized that his son was really in need of the job and that I should give him an opportunity. The father did not want to leave after he said his speech, so I politely had to ask him to let me speak again with his son, but alone. Which kind of candidate needs his father defending his qualities to the recruiter during the interview? Is it to show how competent he is for the job? Be careful with those situations because it might create some serious doubts in the interviewer's mind about the autonomy and empowerment of the candidate. Situation 4. When I was interviewing a woman, at some point I could see a baby's hair on the lower part of the video on the computer screen. The hair was moving and I could hear his voice saying, "Mommy, mommy." Of course, the woman got distracted, and although she tried to ignore the baby, babies do not understand that. So the kid started screaming during the interview. The candidate apologized, explained that it was dinner time for the baby, and asked if I could call again in about 15 minutes to finish the interview. I did call her, but maybe this interruption should not have happened. Situation 5. In another interview, I could hear a kind of echo effect in the room, but it happened before the candidate opened his mouth and could speak. It was like a few seconds before the candidate was going to reply to my question with a word, I could hear the exactly same word in a lower tone of voice coming from another person, but the microphone could still capture that. I started being suspicious about it, kept my ears alert, and finally I understood the real situation. There was somebody else in the room whispering the answers to the candidate, so the candidate could repeat the exactly words to me. Seriously? Why'd you do that? Situation 6. A candidate was checking the watch on his arm from time to time, every minute or so. I asked him if he had to leave, and he said yes. He had to leave because he was already late to meet his girlfriend. I apologized for taking his time and wished him a lovely afternoon with his partner. If the interview didn't seem important enough to him, why should I care too much about it? Situation 7. Another story about boyfriends and girlfriends. A candidate seemed to be tired and was almost falling asleep during the interview. I thought that he could be sick, so I asked if he was feeling well and if we could go ahead with the interview. He said he was feeling good, just needed some rest. Then he explained he didn't have much sleep because he went to his girlfriend's place on the previous night and they didn't stop having fun all night. That's why he was tired today. No further comments. Situation 8. Last but not least, a classical phone ringing situation. During the interviews, we all know that we should turn off our phones before the interview starts. But still, we can eventually forget about it, right? What we should not forget is to think properly in case it rings when you are in the middle of the interview. So, the phone was ringing. The candidate apologized to me and answered his phone to speak to whoever was on the other side of the line for almost 1 minute. I could see that from the webcam and hear him speaking. After, he turned off the phone and told me that he was ready to start his interview again. I could not understand what he spoke about during his phone call because I do not speak his native language. For sure, it was something funny and interesting because he was laughing a lot during the call. I think the person on the other side of the phone was more interesting to him than the interview result. I could go on and on with more examples, all situations that happened to me, but I guess I have made my point. Skype interviews are important as any other kind of interview. Do not forget about it. Do your best and go ahead. As you know, English is not my native language. I use it because I can reach more people and share my experience with you. Feel free to visit my blog at julianarabbi.blogspot.com and find more articles and videos.